Okay, so now we're going to talk about appraisal. We did already kind of talk about this, so we'll go through this pretty quickly. But basically, the mortgage company wants to make sure, the purpose of it is to make sure that the price you're under contract for is actually the proper market value for the home. So the third party appraiser is hired, it's ordered by the mortgage company, paid by you. Mortgage companies are different. Most of them have you pay it as part of your closing costs. Some of them will ask you for the payment before the appraisal is even ordered. So roughly $400 to $500 is how much that costs. So the appraiser goes in, they go to the home, they review the size, condition, improvements, bed, bath count, and they compare it to similar homes in the town to determine its value. So a few days later, the appraiser is going to submit their report to the mortgage company. And what we're hoping for is that it is at value or overvalue. If it's overvalue, we feel like we got a deal. Awesome. We're under contract at 250, but it came in at 260. Amazing. We actually got it under market value. A lot of times it will come in at value because the appraisers know how much we're under contract for. So sometimes they'll just get lazy and say, that's a good value. And then they'll just say it's good to go. The issue is when it's undervalue. So if we are under contract at 250 and it comes in at 240, that's when we have the problem. In this market, as we talked about, it's likely that the outcome is predetermined from our offer. We already agreed to pay $10,000 in the event of a low appraisal. So that's it. We just got to come up with $10,000 extra in our closing costs or towards our down payment. So $10,000, frankly, is a lot. Not everyone is offering that amount. So maybe you're offering $5,000. So we say, okay, we're going to come up with $5,000. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what are you going to come up with? What are you going to do? Honestly, they have the ability to say, sorry, I know you're willing to come down or to come up with $5,000 difference per what you already agreed to before we accepted your offer, but we're not really willing to come up or to come down in price by $5,000 to meet you there. So we're going to go find another buyer. Sellers in this market are greedy. Does not always happen. Can it happen? Yes. It is a shame because it is silly if they do that because they're going back on the market. They're wasting time because at this point, you're more than likely past your inspections. So you've come to a meeting of the minds during your inspection period. So you're more than likely, seller is going to be reasonable and they'll meet you there. Or at least come down $2,500 and ask you to come up with $2,500 more, or they'll figure something out. There is always the possibility of fighting the appraisal. If we feel strongly that there are two comparable homes that should support the value, we can fight it. That has happened too. So there's options. If you under appraise, even in this market, frankly, I haven't had it happen that often. Most of the appraisers understand what's happening with the market and they are, adjusting their values by a certain percentage point, knowing it is a seller's market. And I mean, at the end of the day, it was a price that the buyer agreed to pay and the seller was willing to sell for. So that's really how a transaction transpires. So generally appraisers are understanding the condition of the market and they're adjusting their values to meet demand. So if it's not, so the issue, of course, like I said, is if it's not, so the buyer either comes up with the additional funds or the seller reduces the price. That's the bottom line. So that's that. I also wanted to talk about title for a second. There's really nothing that the buyer needs to do. It's just really for you to understand the purpose of title. Once we go under contract, I will order title through a local trusted title company. The purpose of that is to make sure that you're taking on the property free and clear, meaning free of if the seller had a lien on the property, a mortgage on the property, any issues with either the current owner or maybe even previous owners. I had something where it was a family member had inherited the house. They lived in it for a long time. Years later, he sold the house and found out from title, the buyer's title company, in doing their title search, found that the owner's uncle had ownership of the property at some point. They may have lent the owner money for something, or who knows, and the owner and the uncle became part owner. The owner did not know that. The person selling the home did not know that. So we, had to go and find the uncle and make sure that he signed off on it. So that's the purpose of it. They're going to do the digging to make sure that there's not going to be any issues. And if there are issues, if there is something they missed during their title search, that's the purpose of title insurance, so that you're covered. There's nobody's going to come after you in 10 years saying that they own the property, not you. So that's title. That's the purpose of title. And if there is a lien on the property, if the current owner owes money, the title company is going to make sure that that is all cleared up prior to settlement, so that it is not your problem. Michael asked, the appraised value is generally different from the tax assessed value. Great question. Yes, tax assessed value is crazy talk. Crazy talk. I don't know where the townships are even getting these values from. I don't know. It means nothing. It really just, that tax assessed value is how they're coming up with your taxes. So the tax, your annual taxes is basically the municipality's tax rate multiplied by your assessed value. That's how they're coming up with your taxes, your annual taxes that are due. I mean, most of the time you're assessed way low. And then every few years that you'll get a letter from the township that says, whoop, it's a reassessment year, which means they're going to go through and they're going to reassess your value so that your taxes then go up. That's just, but it has nothing to do with market value. It's a short answer. It's a great question though. Okay, so we will go to slide.